वो लोग आए थे ना फिर वाले और कलरफुल कमीज वाले को मैंने कल कह दिया था आज वो ग्रे कपड़े पहन के आ गए।
यस सर।
हाँ, पिंक ब्लू एंड ग्रे,
यानी कि डाइवर्सिटी होनी चाहिए।
अच्छी बात।
कल आपने समझे शॉट किया कि you remember all my
सीक्वेंस वेल आई गेस वो मेरी अटेंशन आपकी तरफ डाइवर्ट हो गई थी, तो एक बार जब मैं अटेंशन पकड़ ले तो फिर मुझे तस्वीरें याद आती रहती हैं कि
observation needs to be
नहीं पता नहीं वो दिमाग के फतूर होते हैं ना हर एक के, तो मेरी थोड़ी सी वो फोटोजेनिक सी मेमोरी है। आई सी पेजेस व्हेन आई थिंक अबाउट थिंग्स एंड आई सी लाइंस, सो मे बी इट्स सम नहीं, लेकिन पता है वो साथ में वो कुछ डिसेबिलिटीज भी बंदे की होती होंगी ना, जिसको ओवरकम करने के लिए फिर आपकी बॉडी कोई नई एबिलिटीज डेवलप करती है। तो मेरी थोड़ी सी वो लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी है, तो उसको आई गेस कॉम्पनसेट करने के लिए मेरे ब्रेन ने कुछ किया हुआ है। तो भाई बस थिंग्स आर गोइंग वेल राइट, तो इतना चला लिया, थोड़ा बाकी है ज्यादा। अच्छा, so today we're going to be talking about qualitative research, right? And title मैंने थोड़ा सा लंबा करके it's understanding the idea of it, because समंदर को तो जब मैं बंद करना बड़ा मुश्किल काम है। Talking about qualitative research, all of it is highly improbable, but we want to get a gist of. कहते हैं ना, you shouldn't teach your grandma how to cook eggs. So some of you already are in the business, and you already are well aware of what research is all about, and might be familiar with qualitative research to some extent. Some of you might be more familiar with it. So I'm not going to, I guess, try to be condescending in any way. So I'll just give an overview of it. Again, we'll stick to the point of just arriving at methodologies. उससे आगे हम नहीं जाएंगे. We're not going to go into qualitative data analysis in this session because we're going to be talking about softwares and things an hour after this. So then we'll talk about the level of data analysis at that time. Okay? So qualitative data. So bunch of slides that I have for some other purpose. So I'm just sort of repurposing that. So the agenda might be a bit more bigger than what we are actually going to cover. But the main point is to understand the idea and to just sort of place this thought of what role the literature review plays in this whole picture. Also to sort of comprehend this idea of what role the research question has to play in it. What theory has to do with the research, and specifically its role in qualitative research is a bit bigger as compared to the role that theory plays in quantitative research. So we just want to position ourselves into that and just have a look at a couple of methodologies and some other qualities that are. So research as a word is something that we use quite frequently in our normal speech, and you could be sitting on the internet, on your laptop, and you could say, I'm researching the prices of cars, or I'm researching the aajkal value kaise hai, I'm researching this and that. This is something that we do say commonly, and that's the everyday use of it. But then there's also a specific use of the word research, which happens in the sense of science. Now, there's a difference between the way that we do research as an individual versus how we do research as researchers. Right? So the everyday use of research is not very meticulous. There's not really much method to this matter. So you just sit down, and maybe if you want to look at property prices, you just go to maybe zameen.com and say plots in, Hazara.
So then a bunch of plots pop up and then you get an idea, okay, roughly 1000 में canal इतने का है और मरना इतने का है, and so, right? But is that reproducible, right? Somebody else might be trying to find out the prices of plots in Hazara as well, and instead of going to Zameen.com, they went to some other website, or maybe they called a property dealer, or maybe they asked a friend and somebody gave them an, right? So there's this idea of reproducibility is sort of absent. But the big use of the word research entails this idea that it is reproducible. Whether you have done it, and if I follow the same procedure, I should be coming up with pretty much the same answers as well, right? So this is at least what we are striving for, is to have a level of scientific method behind the scenes, right? And scientific method hai kya? You know, in very simple words, it's procedure. It's a series of steps. Right? If you struggle to understand what the scientific method is, just think a couple of years ago when you were sitting through the different types of labs, maybe chemistry lab or maybe a physics lab or something, or a biology lab, and you would have that lab manual. Right? So in that, there were different experiments, and then there were steps written down, and you had to follow those steps. I vividly remember in class 8, we did this experiment. We had a prism, and then we shone a light through it, and then it, you know, went this way. So then we plotted the lines, and we made the lines there, and so right. So for me, that was quite exciting as a person who was 13 years old. But then later on, I found out that, you know, my father had also done the same experiment when he had gone through school, and possibly my grandfather also. It went back, surprisingly, all the way back to Newton. Sir Isaac Newton was the first one to do this, right? So there's this legacy. Since Newton up till now, people are doing it and they're getting the same result. Nobody is getting something different. So that's the scientific method, right? Now, there are different types of research. Now, you have heard of mode 1, and I'm sure you have heard of mode 2, right? So mode 1 is what we call as pure research. Mode 2 is what we call as the applied. Pure research, specifically research done for the purpose of extending the boundaries of science, right? So it's not an explosive expansion. It's not like the Big Bang that suddenly science changes altogether. That happens very rarely. And the people that have done this tremendous change, and they have brought a significant sort of divergence in our thinking pattern, those were the people that have brought for us new paradigms. So I wrote down yesterday here the name of a book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. And that exactly is talking about this idea of how the paradigms shift and paradigm shape. So have you ever encountered or have you seen any paradigmatic shifts that have happened? Of course. Maybe in this time, maybe vicariously, and we have read about paradigm shifts that have happened fairly recently, right? Up until a couple of years ago, anybody who said that the world spins and rotates, they would be either thrown into lakes or rivers, or they would be burnt at the stake, right? What was such a big deal about saying this, that the sun is stationary and the earth is rotating and circumambulating around the sun? What was so wrong with saying that? And anybody that said this, why would we be killing these people? What was the problem? And then later on, we did accept it, right? It's called the Copernican revolution. So eventually we went from the heliocentric universe, from the geocentric universal model to the heliocentric, right? So now the sun has become stationary and we are going in this way. So what's the problem? Why were people dying? Why were they being killed? Must have been a reason, right? And it was not that there is any problem with the sun being stationary and us doing that, but it's a problem of this. It's a problem of a mindset. And there was a very sticky mindset that was behind this. Take it? That's the qualitative idea behind it, right? And the sticky mindset was that Aristotle came out and Aristotle gave us a beautiful idea. और कुछ Aristotle के फलूके भी है. I think there should be a book called Aristotle के फलूके. Aristotle के फलूके इस तरह के हैं कि Aristotle thought that things have an inherent nature. Right? Certain things are made from air, certain things are made from water, certain other things are made from soil. This is what we know. Sorry, fire, water. Fire, water, and air. इन चीजों से चीजें बनी. So birds fly because they are made from air. If I drop this and it falls down, well, it's made from the earth. If something doesn't burn, like iron or bronze, then it's made from Aristotle people. But Aristotle had this other sticky idea, which was that, pure things move in straight lines. Pure things move in straight lines. So if I want to get to the back seat there, I should go up like this and then I should turn it. Rather than jumping and doing all kind of gymnastics, and because I'm a pure character, such impure things, Aristotle philosophized go around in circles. So accepting this idea that we are rotating and circumambulating around the sun is accepting the fact that are pure. And that was this problem. And that's why people were being killed. So eventually then enough people said that the evidence is there and you can't, put your hand inside the sand like an ostrich and say that this is not happening. So eventually it did get this. Right? So you've got pure research extending the boundary of science and a paradigmatic shift happened where the mentality and the thought pattern changed. Other people who have brought paradigmatic shifts would be Charles Darwin, right, with the Darwinian thought instead of evolution. There's evolution है कि क्या है? Darwin क्या बता? उसने किस चीज को challenge किया? What does Darwin challenge? He said it's not a split stat. जो आपका normal हुआ है ना, वही आपको तस्लीक किया गया है, आप इनसे बस इसी तरह तैयार हैं, तो उसको challenge. That's the Darwin's theory, right? Then there's other revolutions that have happened as well. So there's many different paradigmatic shifts that have happened. फिर मैं आपको बाद में बताऊंगा कि the word theory here has a different connotation as opposed to the theory that we normally talk about, right? So Charles Darwin's theory of evolution is something that you don't go and test. It's a fact. It's rather not something up for belief, right? Then there's applied research, right? Concerned about alleviating certain problems and so forth. But there's more tree research as well. Survival के लिए जो हम करते हैं इंसान की survival को improve करने के लिए. So हम अपनी survival के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं?
Moving towards Mars.
Yeah, we're moving towards Mars. We are doing research on how to reclaim water and use that, and we are doing this and that. Poverty alleviation and things. And then there's this one. This is the what's yours. It's paid. Right? Somebody gives me money and says, "Well, I do this." So we've got more zero as well. But I don't think anybody likes this. Now, the outcomes of your research do match. Impact is created and hopefully something useful is coming up. So here's one called a pedantic science. Pedantic का मतलब है छोटी-छोटी nitty-gritties के साथ ताल्लुक रखना और बड़े meticulous तरीके से कोई काम सरंजाम देना. That would be being pedantic. ये जी apostrophe आपने नहीं लगाया हुआ this means that's being pedantic, right? ये full stop जो है ना इसकी जगह पे semicolon होना चाहिए था, that would be pedantic, right? Nitty-gritties.
So if there's a huge amount of methodological and theoretical rigor, but the practical significance is low, then you've got research coming out, and that would be what you would call as pedantic research. वो छोटी छोटी बातों के ऊपर चिपका हुआ है, but it's not really extending science all that. Research for the sake of showcasing your theoretical know-how and your methodological best in front of the world, right? That means we've got popular research where there's theoretically it's not that good, methodologically it's not that good, but it's got high practical relevance. So that's what we call as popular science. So popular science, किधर चल रही है, कहाँ पे हो रही है, and it's going on all around us. We've got this one, low theoretical methodological rigor, low practical relevance, and it's called puerile research, यानी कि silly research. इसके awards भी हैं भाई लोग, जैसे कि आपके पास नोबेल प्राइज होता है, इसी तरह आपके पास इग नोबेल के नाम से भी एक प्राइज है, which is people doing research on silly ideas and then publishing that research, and it's like, इसका क्या फायदा है, बस वो कहता है कोई फायदा नहीं, लेकिन देखो. So the latest person who won the Ig Nobel, उसकी रिसर्च ये थी कि ये जो शावर कर्टन्स होते हैं वो बाथटब्स के साथ जो लगे होते हैं, ये बाहर क्यों नहीं जाते बाथटब के अंदर क्यों है. तो उसकी कंक्लूजन ये थी कि the shower stream that is coming downwards, it creates this type of a vortex of air which pulls the curtain on the inside, तो उसको एक नोबेल प्राइज. तो अब आपको कोई फायदा मिला है कि जानकारी हासिल करके कि आपके शावर कर्टन जो है अंदर इसलिए रहता है क्योंकि vortex create हो गया वो उसको pull it. So that's pure, that's silly, and this is being done for fun and it's being done for this one. And then you've got this हमेशा आपके पास होते हैं ना practical बातें करें, practical ये हवाई बातें ना करें. That's the pragmaticness of things that are done for a particular purpose. So we can't say this that are pedantic and popular. This research are junk, and then this one is good. These are good and these are good as well. मकासद different, right? मकासद different है. मकसद एक का ये है कि हम क्या करना चाह रहे हैं कि हम अपनी नॉलेज को एक्सटेंड. दूसरे का मकसद ये है कि हम कोई एग्जिस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम को हैंडल करना चाह रहे हैं. This is what we want to do, and this is exactly what this slide is talking about. That a researcher is thinking about extending theory and extending science, right? Is not very much concerned about the practicality, but the practitioner is concerned about the practical implication of it. It may actually turn out to have some sort of then later on consequences as far as theories and things might be concerned, but that might be just an effect that might get created. And then you've got basic research and applied research, so you can start thinking about your pragmatic research and your normal research in these terms. And specific as well. Actually, so because we're talking about qualitative research, maybe I don't think this would be that much helpful if you're going quantitative research, but the qualitative there is some room for it. So that's why I brought this one up in front of you. One is this one, right? A research notebook. It's a normal type of thing. If you are doing research, you should have some sort of a notebook in which you are noting down the things that you're reading, things that you want to read, ख्यालात जो आपके बन गए हैं, competing thoughts and this and that, whatever you're thinking about, you should be noting that. And so that's normal. But here's another. It's suggested that you have another note, which is called your learning. And in that, you're not going to write about what this guy said and what that guy was thinking and what paper you want to read and what book you have read. Rather, in this learning journal, you should be writing down about this. What is going on with you? Right?
Are you nervous? Are you concerned about your study? Are you having a hard time because you've got family issues and problems going on? आपका यूपीएस ठीक काम नहीं कर रहा, उस परेशानी की वजह से आपकी रिसर्च नहीं हो पा रही है आपको आपके बच्चे के नंबर अच्छे नहीं आए हैं स्कूल में, सो दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ बॉदरिंग यू, वाइफ आपको साइलेंट ट्रीटमेंट दे रही है, उसकी वजह से आप परेशान हैं. So whatever is going on with you, you're noting this down, and it's a personal level. जैसे वो डायरी लोग नहीं लिखते थे, it's that. अब आप कहेंगे कि इसकी क्या, why should I do this? I met this one professor at the British Academy of Management conference. Brighton में पहली conference पे मैं गया था, तो वहाँ पे सालों के सालों में करना थी. एक workshop थी जिसमें मैंने register किया उनका कोई खातूना, and she was very tall. She was 6'5" plus. She was broad. She was very young, very structured. And she had very short hair and she had a skirt on, and अब मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि ये ट्रांसजेंडर है कि क्या है, आवाज भी उनकी माशाल्लाह तो मर्दाना सी आवाज. But she was such a kind lady and she was such a helpful person. And it turned out that she was a female. खुदा ने किसी को एक तरह बनाया, किसी को दूसरी तरह. But she talked about something which is still there. And she talked about this. I learned to. What she said was कि मैं क्या करती थी कि अपने पीएचडी के स्टार्ट में ये चीज मैंने रखी हुई थी और इस तरह में चलती गई और चलती गई. फिर बाद में मुझे कुछ डिप्रेशन और कुछ इस तरह के प्रॉब्लम्स बने, तो somewhere towards the end of my PhD, she said that I started keeping a learning personal diary. कहती है जब वो रिपोर्ट मैंने सबमिट की ना, तो मैंने एक लास्ट टाइप का स्टेटमेंट इशू की कि अगर मैंने पहले दिन से ये रखा होता ना, तो I could have actually done a PhD on myself. My thesis could have been on me as a person going through the PhD ka rigor and the PhD ka process, and that could be an autoethnographic study of me. So she recommended that you start keeping a diary, and it would help. So मेरे है कोई सी डायरी रखी इवेंट्स को नोट करने के लिए, PhD के दौरान क्या प्रॉब्लम्स निकले और कब निकले और whatever. तो हुआ ऐसे कि during my viva, after viva, so it was all the way to the end. So they said, okay, thank you very much for the viva, but now let's talk about you. Who are you? Where are you from? And what happened to you during this PhD? तो सिस्टम पाकिस्तान से आए, PhD कर रहे हैं, assistant professor, after the out से सरकार से भी मैं competitive scholarship वो बच्ची कहते हैं कि और भी कुछ होगा है ना, तो सुपरवाइजर ने कहा बताओ ना क्या है. वैसा जा रहे थे वो डेटा कलेक्शन के लिए, एक बॉम्ब एक्सप्लोजन हुई तो उसमें से बच गया, एक और उस पे बॉम्ब एक्सप्लोजन में पीछे एक और टांगे और हाथ वाथ हवा में हो गए, जब दिल बैठ के आवाज में बाल बाल बचा, और सुनाने जगह पे गया तो पीछे सैलाब आ गया, तो क्या करें स्टार्ट करें हुआ था ये हुआ. This is I thank you for sharing this, and I would like you to write this in your thesis. In my thesis, I should put that. So he said, the examiner said, put a section called personal reflexivity, in which you tell us, your reader, what was going on in your life when you did this thesis, because this might not be the best thesis, right? But it is the best in that situation. और कहते हैं ये आप मुझे एक हार्ड बाइंड कॉपी इस थीसिस की भिजवाएं प्लीज, and I'm going to put this in my office, so anytime somebody comes to me and says कि मेरे ये मसले निकल रहे हैं और मैं इस ट्रबल में हूँ, तो मैं तुम्हारा थीसिस निकाल के उसको दूंगा कि देखो ये तो बम के एक्सप्लोजन में भी बचा था और इसके साथ तो ये भी हुआ. पेशावर में चेकमेंट प्लाजा के पास किया एक्सप्लोजन है, यूनिवर्सिटी टाउन में एक एक्सप्लोजन है, मंगला डैम के पास क्या फ्लडिंग आ गई थी, वहां पे फंस गए। So reflexivity is something that we can be thinking about, right? So you should think about this, right? You should be caring about your own self in the research process as well. And you can show up in your thesis and you can talk about you and अब इसका एनालिसिस आप कैसे करेंगे? तो पर्सनल रिफ्लेक्शन का जो सेक्शन है उसमें कोई एनालिसिस आप नहीं कर रहे, बट इफ यू आर एक्चुअली डूइंग ऑटो एथनोग्राफी तो फिर आपको क्या करना होगा? ऑटो एनालिसिस भी आप उसमें फिर क्या हुआ कि आई मेट दिस अदर एंड ही हैड he was also very tall, but he was a male and he was a professor at the University of Bonn. बड़ा मजे का इंसान था, वो फिसला हुआ था, he had gone into French philosophy. तो उसने क्या किया कि he read about a philosophy and which was about this, right? Author का नाम अभी मुझसे लिखा है ज़हन से, but the idea was this. He said, think about a foot. बाहर कितने फुटपाथ होंगे? ये किस मकसद के लिए? ये करते क्या हैं फुटपाथ? ये सड़कें करती क्या हैं? एक जगह से आपको दूसरी जगह लेके जाती हैं. So whether I go out on this footpath or Shafiq Saab goes out on this footpath or Imran goes out or Asad go out, and we go towards space 6, we all pretty much get the same experience. We see the same trees, we see the same thing. Maybe it just so happens that he sees the front of the BRT bus and I see the half middle of it and he doesn't see the BRT bus. But for the most part, this footpath is allowing us to go from one point to another. But at the same time, it is limiting our experience of Peshawar. So what should we do to get a different experiences? Get off the damn footpath. Go through an empty plot. Hop over somebody's fence. Jump over the table and go. And what would happen is that you'll experience something that's fun. So what that silly French philosopher had actually done was he had landed in JFK airport in New York. And then he took his luggage and somehow he managed to walk all the way from JFK to Manhattan downtown. 40 kilometers ki usne walk. And he was so pleased with himself that I got to see New York, which so his PhD then was about himself taking different paths to the department to think about the PhD and noting down all the thoughts and things that were going through his mind while he was changing the paths. So it was an autoethnographic study of a business consultant going to a consulting job and what is going on through his mind. And what and how his thoughts are changing with the walk as he took it by the river versus how his thoughts altered when he took it through some parks. Right, so there's a experimentation idea here as well, that you can introduce strange things. But really, what is research doing is asking strange type of questions. And these are very peculiar questions. Why is something happening? What if it happens in this way? What is going on, right? Are these quantifiable? How much do I weigh? It's certainly quantifiable. How much is my height? It's certainly quantifiable. Why am I this way? It's not quantifiable. Why do I like X, Y, Z? And what if that's not available? Then what would be my choice? That is certainly not quantifiable, right? So these are questions that require थोड़ा सा खुरेदना and getting deeper into. So that's sort of like the flavor that we have in quantitative. कुछ सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं इसको मैं ऐसे नाम आपके सामने ले आया but if you start using them as early as possible to make life very easy. If you are not familiar with any of them, do become familiar with them. ये वाला मजे का है नोट लेकिन पैसों पे है ये वाला मुफ्त है लेकिन बड़े खबीस लोग हैं पहले अच्छे लोग होते थे अभी इसको एक्सेवियर में खरीद लिया है बड़ी लाइक्स है ये अच्छा है ये ओपन सोर्स फाउंडेशन की तरफ से आता है सो इसके प्राइवेसी के इश्यूज भी नहीं तो जो भी आपसे ये तो बिल्कुल फ्री चीजें हैं और ये रेफमैन if you are a public sector university आपके पास ये available है ठीक है so talk to your librarian or your IT staff and रेफमैन is available on your ठीक है अच्छा टॉपिक के हवाले से just a very quick thing it can come from various different sources right but whatever you do always pick a topic that you like and you enjoy because otherwise it gets very boring and if you're not invested in it, it's not fun. So make sure you pick something in that. Try to pick something that's more contemporary as opposed to something that's quite old and done with. For example, in HR, बहुत पहले लोगों का traits के बारे में था, like a good leader has certain traits. अब वो खत्म. Nobody is really working on the trait theory anymore, right? So if you pick up a trait theory type of a concept about leadership, it's not very contemporary. If you want to do leadership in a contemporary topic, then pick up leadership as a process, and you'll find that there's more relevant things going on. Also, maybe be a bit more altruistic and start thinking about society and start thinking, okay, मेरा research फायदा क्या है? So that would be also a good question. कि जो आप कर रहे हैं, is it actually going to create some value? And make sure it's good. Sources of ideas आपके पास multiple हैं, identify कर सकते हैं आप उसके साथ या आपका organizational sponsor दे रहा है, किसी world event से आ गया है, COVID की वजह से, monkey pox की वजह से, depressions जो लोगों में आ गई हैं because of COVID and so. So whatever you do, make sure it's there. Theoretical problems से भी आ सकते हैं ideas. So if you are trying to get ideas from theoretical problems, so of course you start reading theory. Here's an interesting one that somebody found. It's called Revisiting Phil. And this was published in 2005. Anybody remember who Henry Phil is? Henry Phil. Who is Henry Phil?
Father of scientific management. Henry Phil
scientific management के father जो है वो Frederick Westrock है.
Henry Phil was the industrial.
He is the father of
Modern management. He is a management guru and
modern. He is the father of modern management. ठीक है? Henry Fayol is the father of modern management. And Henry Fayol gave us two things. एक तो आपने सुना होगा ना एक planning, leading, organizing से principles of management जो होते हैं. एक ये इसका था. दूसरी चीज जो Henry Fayol ने दी थी is 14 different principles for management. So चार बड़े interesting से हैं, sticky से हैं, वो अभी तक हम इस्तेमाल करते हैं. स्केलर चेन ऑफ कमांड होनी चाहिए यूनिटी ऑफ कमांड होना चाहिए रोल भी हो और अथॉरिटी भी प्रोवाइड करें और साथ में एस्प्री डे कॉर भी अब फेल बताते हैं कि यार ये मेरी ऑब्जर्वेशंस थी और मैं अपने फैक्ट्री के अंदर बैठ के ये देखता रहता था इंडस्ट्री जैसे ना यार स्टील वाला थिंग गोइंग ऑन सो ही इज डूइंग ऑल दीस ऑब्जर्वेशंस एंड दिस इज ऑल बेस्ड अपॉन माय 3 years of work he said. This paper got published in a very fine journal, the British Journal of Management. It's 6+ impact factor है इसका और ये 4-star journals की category में आता है और management के journals में 1 out of 1000 इस तरह के वो ranking वाले. तो पार्कर एंड रिक्सन से कि ये झूठ बोल रहे हैं
ये जिस टाइम पे कह रहे हैं कि मैं उस अपनी इंडस्ट्री में बैठ के रिसर्च कर रहा था ना, तो ये नीस क्या हुआ था अपनी मंगेतर के साथ, ये छुट्टियां मना। He was not there in the factory, और ये तो 3 साल, ये तो बड़ा मालदार था, ये तो 3 साल अपनी मंगेतर के साथ चक्करे मार रहा था यूरोप में। तो इसने कब ये देखा कर, इसने कब ये ऑब्जर्व किया? ये सब कुछ नहीं, ये इसके खामे ख्याल, these are his thoughts. Okay, so fine. हमें क्या पता लगा कि हेनरी टोल तो अब क्या करें? अभी Gerard is now no longer, he's the ex-father of modern.
There is some principles that say the law which is applied against in Pakistan.
वो अलग है,
These
right? वो अलग है. So it doesn't mean that we have thrown out Phil, because the things that he made, he talked about do make sense. Right? It's not that his tajruba wasn't there. It's just that what he's claiming he didn't happen in that time period. It perhaps happened in a more extended time. Right? So he's still considered to be the father of management. But this very theoretically driven type of a study, where somebody noticed something in discrepancy in the dates and the placements, and then based upon that, they went after the guy. And more about 100 years later, right? Somebody is saying, "Okay, अच्छा जी, टॉपिक को रिफाइन करना मैंने कल आपको बताया था कि मेरे टाइटल ऑफ थीसिस में बहुत ज्यादा कीवर्ड्स थे, तो thought like big and it was difficult to handle, so make sure you refine. So refinement अच्छी चीज है. Maybe you can use things like this. Mind maps आप कर सकते हैं, that can help you think out your thoughts and put them on a piece of paper. You could do hierarchies like this and increasingly go down in depth, and then you can sort of refine the topic in that manner. You can do overlaps and Venn diagrams and try to see okay, ये इस जगह पे nascence पे पड़ा हुआ है ना, तो यहाँ पे मैं research करना चाहूँगा. For example, आप corruption पे research. Corruption you will find is not एक हाथ से ताली नहीं बजती. Corruption के लिए constant दो अदाकार. So there's an overlap, right? So कौन से दो अदाकार हैं जो कि corruption करेंगे? एक तो मैं और आप, private actor. लेकिन मैं और आप तो बड़ी छोटी corruption करेंगे ना, चाय पानी बख्शीश शीरीनी, वो तो हम वो वाली कर रहे हैं, 20 रुपए 1000 रुपए का नोट होगा, ये तो हमारी corruption है. But is that really corruption? Is it really that we are doing something wrong? Or is it that the routine governmental process is what is running and we're just simply putting money into it to expedite the process and make it go faster? तो हम तो कोई गलत नहीं कर रहे, हम तो सिर्फ elbow grease दे रहे हैं ताकि signature rapidly है ना. कल होना है तो बस अभी हो जाए ना, तो हम तो वो कर रहे हैं. अब वो जो ले रहा है वो भी उसको माइंड नहीं कर रहा, और not doing anything wrong, वो कह रहे हैं तो आप हलाल की कमाई है ना, तो उन्हें खुशी से मुझे दिया. So किधर है फिर corruption, कौन कर रहा है? So it's the private actors, which would be the private entities out there, and they are putting money into the pockets of non-elected government officials and elected government officials. So that's why corruption is. So if you draw a Venn diagram, you would get the area of interest. So अब वो overlap किधर है जहाँ पे आप जाके ये study.
Corruption. Private sector sometimes, and in public sector, in universities or in educational institutions. I think teachers are now, I can say corrupt. They are supervising students, but they are not giving them time to guiding them through the process.
ठीक है मैडम, I agree with you. But तीन
I
types.
think this is one of
Petty. It's a very small level corruption. It's called petty. Then there's grand corruption. It's the बहुत बड़ा पैसा होता है. And then there's influence spending. जिसमें आप भी इस आपने इस्तेमाल किया होगा, तो हम typify कर सकते हैं कर्नल की बीवी. Right? So that's called influence. Sorry, आप तो जरा फौजी खानदान में है, फौजी खानदान. So that's the influence. Right, so that's influence training. तो जो आप एग्जांपल दे रही हैं, it is there. Corruption जो है ना ये प्रोसेस को काफी स्टडी किया जा चुका है. अब आप कुछ भी करेंगी तो pedanticness है. आप उसमें एक इजाफी एग्जांपल्स पॉइंट. Right, so फाइनेंशियली आपके पास ऐसे हैं कि नहीं, कैपेबिलिटी आपके पास है कि नहीं, आप अपने आप को भी जरा देखने के आप अच्छा, फिर कुछ सॉफ्ट टॉपिक्स हैं एंड कुछ हमारे पास हार्ड टॉपिक्स क्वांटिटेटिव फॉर्म. राइट, सो हार्ड टॉपिक्स for the most part would be either physics के related, physical sciences के related, और अगर हम social sciences में आ गए तो फिर हमारे जो quantitative type के topics हो जाएंगे उनको हम इस category में डाल hard topics. और soft topics वो हैं जो कि feelings और emotions और उनके साथ ताल्लुक रखते हैं, so we put that in that. Right, so here's the research idea. If you're interested in doing research in media campaign following some product recalls, we can ask questions like, how effective is a media campaign designed to increase consumer trust in, I don't know, A's company following a series of product recalls? Agar aap graduate recruitment कर रहे हैं via the internet, to what extent and in what type of context is internet-based recruitment and selection of graduates effective, and why is it? You get the feel that these topics are having a soft touch to that. There's going to be questions that have to be asked that are going to be going in increasing depth, and we are going to build up something. Right? इनको आप surveys और उसके through नहीं कर सकते, इनके लिए आपको एक specific type के methods चाहिए. अब ये जो questions हैं इसका एम क्या है? तो कल भी मैंने आपको हल्का सा एंड दिया था कि वो ऑब्जेक्टिव कुछ और चीज है, एम कुछ और है. सो वही मैं यहाँ पे लिख रहा हूँ. You've got research questions, and what's the aim? What is it that you're trying to achieve? The aim of this research is to assess the effectiveness of media campaign designed to increase consumer trust following a series of recalls. The aim of this is to understand situations. The aim of this research is to explore the issue, and the aim of this research is to explore how emergence is happening. So what's the objective? The objective is how you will actually go about achieving this. So once you have your research questions, you've got your research aims, then you will be able to specify your research objectives, and then you can go ahead and set up your methodology and collect your data. Before you jump in, there's this idea of the theory and that, right? So in qualitative research, this plays a big role as opposed to quantitative research. And quantitative research we've got something going on called theory building. Theory testing. So theory testing such as a very small hypothesis is formulated, and that's the theory. And then you go out and test that theory, and you see whether it is going to hold up or it's going to fall. There you are following a tradition. अगर आपने note किया, there is this null hypothesis that exists, and it's normally one that gets disqualified. The alternate hypothesis is the one that you try to get. And there's a reason for it. Is Sir Karl Popper and Popperianism भी इसको कहते हैं, या आप इसको कह सकते हैं the hypothetical deductivo tradition. Right? इससे पहले जो थॉट थी वो ये थी कि आप बेसिकली किसी चीज को प्रूफ कर सकते. तो अब आप सोचिए कि हम जानना चाहते हैं कि सारे कौवे काले होते हैं कि नहीं. तो हम निकल जाएंगे, पहले हम जाते हैं शर्मान पार्क में सारे कौवे चेक करें, फिर उसके बाद हम जाएंगे कंपनी बाग चले जाएंगे. तो कंपनी बाग का कौवा उस टाइम तक जो है सदर आ गया होगा, और वो सलमान पार्क वाला कंपनी बाग में फिर आ गया होगा, तो हम उसको कहेंगे तूने जान शर्माई है, फिर आ गया. चलो उनको दोबारा चेक कर लेंगे, फिर हम जाएंगे किसी और पार्क को, किसी ओ कौवा पैदा होगा फिर रहे. तो हम can we ever accomplish this? Checking all the cover in the world and making sure कि वो खा लें. So Karl Popper said कि ये सर नहीं, बेहतर तरीका क्या है कि आप एक कौवा ऐसा पैदा करके ले आए जो कि काला नहीं है, जो शायद पिंक है या ब्राउन है या व्हाइट है. तो फिर क्या हुआ कि you know proving that all the crows in the world are black is impossible, but showing that all the crows in the world are not black is easy because all you need to do is find that one particular instance. Right? So when Karl Popper did this, तो इसने अपनी बुक में लिखा कि I have killed positives. This is his exact statement. Positivism is now dead. I have killed positivism. Right? The thing was that when Sir Karl Popper was writing this, around that time, there were 23 different types of positivism being practiced in the world. And one of the dominant positivism that was leading the world was the one being done through the funding of Hitler and the people that Hitler was supporting. So people like Husserl and Heidegger and other German philosophers were being paid tremendous amount of money by Hitler, and they were all trying to sell to us something called logical positivism. Men have 2 feet and chicken have 2 feet. Logical positivism was thinking that you can prove anything through logic. The fear was कि अगर ये रहेगा ना तो बस फिर तो कहानी खराब हो जाएगी. Now the fear was कि would Hitler be able to get to the atomic bomb through this logic? So when Karl Popper comes in and he destroys it, तो then हम रिलैक्स हो जाते हैं कि हिटलर के बंदे कभी भी एटॉमिक बॉम्ब नहीं बना पाएंगे because they don't have the right science. So the right science that we have now, there's only one positivism, is that hypothetical deductible tradition in which we are doing theory testing. But on the qualitative side, you are not doing theory testing, rather you are doing theory building. But are you building the theory from scratch? Are you going to come and say, okay, bhai, abhi aap taiyar ho jaye, main theorize karta hu, right? And you start throwing out your pearls of wisdom and giving us the theory. So that's not. Right? Rather, what we do is we use existing theories, we mobilize them, and then we see how much of our data is explained away by that existing theory. Fine. Whatever new that exists in our data set, which the theory is unable to explain, so we add to that theory and we extend. So this is exactly what theory building is all about. There is a theory called social theory. How old is social theory?
Explain the social.
How old is it? कब से चल रही? Figures हैं 350 साल से सोशल थ्योरी के ऊपर काम हो रहा है, अभी तक उस पे काम चल रहा है. सोशल थ्योरी इज स्टिल नॉट कंप्लीट क्योंकि सोशल थ्योरी हैज वेरी सिंगुलर ऑब्जेक्टिव टू एक्सप्लेन ईच एंड एवरी कल्चर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. लेकिन प्रॉब्लम ये है कि कल्चर जो है वो डायनामिक है, स्टैटिक नहीं. So culture theory can never get completed, but that doesn't mean culture theory is rubbish. It's always having a place where somebody can add to that theory and it grows and it grows and it grows. So we are always able to add to it. So the best way to do it is to use existing theories and then grow. So theories हैं क्या? ये Oxford English Dictionary की definition is a supposition of systems or ideas explaining something. Theory denotes a set of well-developed categories that are systematically interrelated through statements of relationship to offer an explanation about a phenomenon. Theories are not right or wrong; they are only more or less useful. थ्योरी के ऊपर ये तनकीद ना करें कि गलत है ये ठीक है. यूजफुल है तो यूज करें, यूजफुल नहीं है तो. Many theories that you'll find are very popular and people are using. Transaction cost economics is still being utilized. It's very popular. Actual network theory is still being utilized. It's very popular, right? Sense making in the organization is very popular. Still people are using that. So many theories that you might be familiar with, they are popular in people's music. There are many theories that you have never heard of. They were popular once, but they have lost popularity. तो ये जो थी बेकार थी, ये थी कि बस आपका रुझान रहा तो उसकी तरफ क्या आपका रुझान है. So there is no master here who's saying this theory को देखो, it is us and our behavior and our utility of something. And if we find something is useful, we continue using it so it remains and applies. And if we find it's not really useful, so on, उसको भुला देते हैं. It might become useful later on, तो फिर हम उसको दोबारा. So this is that. So here's a little bit of a hierarchy of theories. Right? You've got grand theories, you've got mid-range theories, and you've got substantive. Grand theories जिन लोगों ने हमें दिए हैं, आपको उनके नाम दिए. Karl Marx. Marxism, right? What is Karl Marx? What is this? Pretty much a Marxist insan. Really like it. मेरे जो खुद पर्सनल ख्यालात बने जिंदगी के बारे में तो उसमें बीच में कहीं पे मैंने फिर मार्क्सिज्म पढ़ी तो मैं कहा ये तो भाई है मेरा, ये तो वही कार्ल मार्क्स का ये ख्याल है कि भाई लोग जो हैं आ गए हैं, अब सिटीज में रह रहे हैं, अजीब अजीब सी नौकरियां पेशे कर रहे हैं, सुबह हो जाती है, शाम हो जाती है, और इंसान इस परेशानी में बैठा होता है कि मैंने क्या कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट किया, व्हाट हैव आई क्रिएट. मेरा ये ख्याल था कि हम चूंकि किसी क्रिएटर ने होपफुली बनाए हैं तो हमारा भी ये रोल होना चाहिए कि हम भी कुछ क्रिएट. कार्ल मार्क्स का भी ये ख्याल है कि पीपल वांट टू क्रिएट थिंग्स एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन दे आर अनएबल टू से कि मैंने क्या क्रिएट किया. आप जाए ना टोयोटा कंपनी वाले सारे एम्प्लॉइज को ले आना, उसको कहें ये वाली गाड़ी किसने बनाई आप में से, वो एक कहेगा मेरा तो जी काम ये है कि बैटरी के टर्मिनल से स्कॉच टेप चढ़ाता हूँ, मैं तो पूरा दिन ये करता हूँ. दूसरा कहेगा कि मैं उसके बाद ये नट टाइट करता हूँ, बाकी तुम. ये कहेंगी मैं तो इसमें सीट लगाती हूँ, वो कहेगा मैं तो स्टीयरिंग सीधा करके उसको टाइट करता हूँ, कहती है मैं बिजली की तार जोड़ देती हूँ. Which guy made that? Lady made that. Nobody is able to say. Right? So इसकी वजह से Karl Marx thinks that something happened, which is angst. Angst, by the way, English की डिक्शनरी में मेरा फेवरेट. इसका उर्दू का तर्जुमा है मीठा सा दर्द. So angst. So we all have this मीठा सा दर्द inside us, and we are thinking कि ये क्या बेमकसद सी. तो फिर हम क्या करते हैं कि हम वीकेंड पे हम जाते हैं इस्लामाबाद में, फिल्में देखते हैं, हम सस्ते नशे करते हैं, हम बैठ के जुए खेलते हैं, हम ट्रिप्स पे निकलते हैं, क्योंकि हम क्या कर रहे हैं उस को मिटाने. और फिर मंडे आता है और फिर हम कहते हैं कि ये क्या बकवास. संडे से ही हमें मंडे याद आना शुरू हो जाता है. एंड देन ऑन वेडनेसडे we start feeling better because we start seeing the weekend again, and it's even called a hump Wednesday. इसको नाम भी दिया गया है, hump Wednesday. So we get over the hump and say, okay. And this is how it goes on. So what will save you is the great revolution. तो as a Marxist अब हम इंतजार कर रहे हैं कि वो great revolution कब आए. अभी तक आई नहीं है. So this is a grand thing. What is it doing? It's explaining society as a capitalistic society and the role of an individual. और फिर कुछ लोग हैं जो क्या में ना धोखे देते रहते हैं, वो bourgeois and petty bourgeois, proletariats हम हो गए. So पूरा एक टोपी ड्रामा साथ में चला हुआ है और हमें एक निजाम में डाल दिया गया है और बस हम. So this is what we want to get out. So that's a grand theory. Do we want anything to do with grand theory? Maybe he does because he's a sociologist, but you and I don't because we are organizational level people. So we want to stay at mid-range. Okay? What would be a mid-range theory? It would be a theory that deals with groups of individuals. and it starts thinking about what individuals are. तहकाल में लोग निकल आते हैं जब बिजली की लोड शेडिंग होती है और कभी खड़े होके वापडा कुत्ता हाय हाय करके फिर कोई आके उनसे बात करता है वो घर चले जाते कभी वो निकलते हैं और फिर वो शीशे तोड़ते हुए बर्गर तक आते हैं और इतना कर लेते हैं कि हर एक ने ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह अपने शीशों के ऊपर लिखा होता है कि उनके शीशे तो सवाल ये है कि ये क्यों कभी तोड़ फोड़ करते हैं और कभी नहीं करते ग्रुप लेवल कंसर्न है So there's an answer for it, and it's called the standing ovation model by Thomas Schelling, economics का बंदा है, तो वो आपको explain करते हैं कि ये group ही dividend. There's a great range theories है, adopt करें, use करें, and then try to see if it explains the way the behavior of the group that you're studying, and if it doesn't, then you add to that theory and you. Substantial theory होंगी जो कि individual level पे होंगी तो if you were a psychologist so then these would be for concern of you otherwise and so we have no concern about grand theories but we are concerned about जो है हमारी छोटी let review वाला section हम तो skip करते हैं
If you can give a bit enlighten us about the integrated theory of the community. Nowadays that are being used in researches. Like we are making relationship based on different theories, while in the past we were like using one theory or another, but now in researches we are seeing this that they are using at a time so many theories, and then they are making a relationship and all this. So is this a theoretical or what or like?
चले पहले ये ब्रेक में ना बात करने से क्योंकि हम ऐसे भी टाइम को क्रॉस करने वाले हैं तो just want to cover this. अच्छा, please don't use spin software. You know what is spin software is? Spinning and spinning software, yeah, spinners and you can pick up somebody's text, go onto the internet, put it into the spinner software, some new text will come out that you fix plagiarism or you can stick it to avoid plagiarism and be a lazy bugger, right? You can do that, but you should. Asha, don't use online similarity checks. If you've got issues with Turnitin and it's not working, don't ever use these online similarity check softwares. Kyun?
They can still steal our.
They will steal. The moment you upload it, they have a copy. At the same time, they are offering you the service of checking the plagiarism. At the same time, they are offering services to people for report writing and so on and so forth. So your text then appears in somebody's thesis and then you've got a plagiarism issue. Right? If you want to use something, Turnitin is the only place that you should. It is okay to use Turnitin, don't use spin software, and don't use online. Madam, can I take a few minutes? Kitna extra?
5 minutes.
5. Okay. Ontology. Anybody know what an ontology? It's the view that you hold of the world. Right? This is you as a person. How do you see it? What is the world now? Yes, is it knowable? And any type of a question is a fair question and you can ask. If you hold that view, you are a positivist. If you think यार दुनिया जो है ना बड़ी मुनफरद है इनसे पूछें ये तो सऊदीया से मोटे मोटे ख्याल लेके आए हैं तो इनके लिए तो दुनिया बड़ी अच्छी होगी हम तो गरीब और आए इधर रुपए कमाते हैं उधर डॉलर ऊपर चले जाते हैं हमारे लिए दुनिया कोई और किस्म की होगी और सूजन कह रही है कि मैं तो खातून हूँ तो मेरे लिए तो दुनिया के मसले मसाइल और भी किस्म के हैं तो she sees over it. Right? So ontologically, we could have different views. Okay. Epistemology kya hai? It is the nature of knowledge. Right? So given this view that we hold about the world, what can we know of? What knowledge can I now get back? So if I think the world is singular, right, and there's nothing hidden, so then the nature of knowledge is that I can know everything. if I think that the world is pluralistic and he has his view of the world and he has hers and she's got hers, so then I cannot know the world perfectly. I can know it through his eyes and his eyes and her eyes. So the more people that I ask, perhaps the more I. But will I get to know the world perfectly? Absolutely. And are all type of questions fair questions and can I know everything? So there's a limit to knowledge. Knowledge is limited. That's Immanuel Kant and the book is called The Critique of Pure Reason. Phenomena की हद तक आप limited. Your reasoning, your know-how is limited, according to Immanuel Kant, to the level of the phenomena. Anything you want to ask about the phenomena is a fair question you can ask because you can get a reply. Things that have to deal with phenomena, you can never get the answer. Allah Ta'ala क्या कर रहा है? क्या करता है पूरा दिन का? किससे पूछे? कौन जवाब? तो कहीं ले गया है. What does he do? So maybe somebody makes up an hour ऐसे कर तो वो कहाँ से बातें कर रहा है पता नहीं अपनी तरफ से बातें कर रहे. So can we ever get to know this answer? So is this a question that we should ask? According to Kant, you should, right? So Kant says in order to do science, you should limit your questions to the phenomena. The realm of phenomena is a realm in which you can't go. You can't ever get an answer because nobody is responding. Right? So our knowledge is limited up to the phenomena. So that's like a epistemological concept, right? So always think about how you see the world and then think about what kind of knowledge can be gotten, but concentrate upon the phenomena. Axiology, आप bias करेंगे क्या bias? Whether you throw this up and down, right? क्या ये bias हो जाएगा, influence होगा हमारी वजह से? But if I keep asking the same question from you again and again and again, quite soon आप मुझसे चिढ़ जाएंगे. तो मैं आपको शायद गलत तरीके से वो सवाल पूछ लूं तो फिर आपका response भी बदल जाए. So that's the axiology. And what is a paradigm? It's a combination of the ontological and epistemological out that we have from there. Next, we are on the किस्म की अब देखिए research आया है. We are बहुत सी methodologies के नाम बताते हैं. So if you are going for qualitative, look at this. You've got archival research, you've got case study methodology, you've got ethnography, you've got action research, you've got grounded theory, you've got narrative inquiry. These are all qualitative methodologies. Yes, and what is the quantitative methodology? Experiment and such. तो आपको वहाँ पे justify करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. If you're doing a quantitative study, you don't have to justify an experiment, nor do you have to justify something. But if you're doing a qualitative research, you have to pick amongst these, right? And you have to justify why that is the right. So what would be the justification for it? On what do I base my decision to go for one methodology versus another? My research question. And so I can always pivot on my research question and I can choose. So on what basis do I choose one methodology against the other? That's my research question. What is my question all about? Right? उसके बेस पर मुझे choice. अच्छा. For example, ethnography. Ethnography को qualitative science में वो मकाम हासिल है जो कि experiment को quantitative में हासिल. If experiment is pure science from quantitative side, तो qualitative की side से pure research क्या है फिर वो है ethnography. What is ethnography concerned about? The routine, the mundane, and the boring. Ethnography is not going to ask you कि जब आप लोग ट्रेनिंग पे आए तो फिर क्या और फिर आपने क्या एथनोग्राफी आपके पास आएगा श्रींगेल कैंपस में और वहां पे आपको देखेगा कि जब दिन के 12-12 घंटे बिजली नहीं होती तो आप क्या करते क्लास में आप जाते हैं और वहां पे बिजली नहीं होती है इंटरनेट के कनेक्शन आ रहे होते हैं जा रहे होते हैं तो फिर आप क्या आप जाके क्लासों में फलसफा जानना चाहते हैं और स्टूडेंट आपको कहते हैं कि वल्लाह का भरोसा हाँ इम्तिहान की बस तो फिर आप क्या सोचते हो आप अपने आप को कौन सी गालियां देते हो कि ये मैं किधर आके फंस गया ये किन जायलों के साथ है वो जो रूटीन और मंडेन और बोरिंग है तो आप सोचें आपका रिसर्च क्वेश्चन उसके साथ ताल्लुक रख रहा था तो फिर आप एथनोग्राफी की तरफ जाएं उसके साथ ताल्लुक नहीं था फिर आप appropriate methodology को चूज कीजिए राइट सो in order to understand this, I guess then you have to understand these methodologies very well. लेकिन अगर नया आ रहे हैं ना आप qualitative side पे तो this is the safest methodology to go for. It's called the case study, and this was designed by a person who actually was a experimentalist. तो वो qualitative study करना चाह रहा था तो he's come up with a very structured method. So it's a very quantitative way of doing a qualitative study. So if you want to do one, the qualitative case study is nice. Okay. Though इसमें missing, there is something called a natural experiment. आपको नहीं डिजाइन करना पड़ता वो by nature exists. वो यहाँ पे missing है. दूसरी चीज जो missing है यहाँ पे simulations. वो भी research now. So, for example, agent-based modeling कर सकते हैं आप social phenomena के बाद और फिर वो agents को आप चला सकते हैं. So that could be research as well. तो उसकी methodology में से है. Natural experiment से मुराद ये है. बता सब बस आखिरी बात है मेरी. उसमें ये हुआ था कि somebody had this very interesting thought कि family courts के जो judges होते हैं इनके जो तलाक और इस तरह के फैसले इनको करने पड़ते हैं तो जज की अपनी कैसी औलाद अगर जज की नरीना औलाद है तो फिर इसके फैसले उस मर्द के हक में जा रहे हैं उस खातून के हक में जा रहे हैं कि बच्चों के हक में जा रहे हैं अगर इस जज की जनाना औलाद है तो फिर इसका फैसला किस तरफ जा रहा है तो अब आप मुझे बताएं ना आप जज की औलाद तो नहीं बदल वो तो भाई कोइंसिडेंस जो भी उसकी औलाद है वो है तो अब उस जज के फैसले आप उठा के देख सकते हैं कि उसने इस केस में कैसे फैसले किए और दूसरों ने कैसे किए and it turned out that judges that have female offsprings they tend to make decisions that are in the best favor of the children that are involved in a divorce. Judges that have male offsprings only they tend to make वो वाले फैसले के हक का फैसला इसके पास भी उतना ही पैसा रह जाए उसके पास भी उतना ही रह जाए वो उस तरह की क्वालिटी की तरफ चले जिनकी मिक्स की औलाद है या फीमेल जजेस हैं पर उनके फैसले मार्केटली तो आप नहीं चेंज कर सकते उनके बच्चे सो इट्स अ नेचुरल एक्सपेरिमेंट इज समथिंग दैट्स ऑलरेडी देयर यू आर सिंपली गोइंग ठीक है और थ्योरी बिल्डिंग या आप कर रहे हैं आप एग्जिस्टिंग थ्योरी को मोबिलाइज करके यू आर ट्राइंग टू एक्ट फाइन थैंक यू सो वेरी मच वकार साहब आई एम सो सॉरी
No, it's all right.